Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of What's New in Prisma. I'm super excited. I'm Nicholas Burke. I haven't been on the stream for the past 2 episodes, but today I'm back again and I'm here with my colleague Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing today? What's up in Canada?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day here. We've had some really awesome hot days already, so it's been great. I'm so happy to be out of the winter slog and heading towards summertime niceness. Things are good, and I was just telling you before we started, I just booked my vaccine. Finally, things are starting to look up vaccine wise here. Things are looking up all around. How are you doing?
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, actually, the vaccine was the reason why I didn't join the stream last time. I actually had gotten it on a Wednesday. And then on Thursday, I was like fairly optimistic that I could join the stream. But up until the afternoon, I was feeling okay. I thought I'd rest a little bit, a few hours in the afternoon, and I'd be ready for the stream. But then just half an hour before the stream, I was like, okay, I'm not able to join. But then thankfully, Matt and Daniel were filling in, and I think they did a really good job last time. So super happy that we have so many colleagues that are spontaneous and also very capable to replace us for these occasions.
Totally. Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm glad you're all better and happy to be back with you here on the stream.
Yes. And today I think we have a couple of really nice things to talk about. So first, of course, we'll talk about this week's release 2.23 and the new stuff that we have released there. Then we will talk to our working student developer advocate, Mahmoud, who is nearing his 6-month anniversary here at Prisma. And we just want to talk to him and learn a little bit about how the first months have been for him, what he had been working on, and what his personal highlights were, really. So I'm very excited about chatting with him on the stream today. And then I also prepared a little bit of a demo, again, of another GraphQL tool that we have had a couple of already on the stream. It feels like the entire kind of GraphQL and Prisma ecosystem is really maturing, and a lot of new tools are popping up. And I want to show today how you can generate a CRUD GraphQL API with an SDL-first approach, which really is something that we haven't covered on the stream yet. So we talked about similar things with respect to type GraphQL and Nexus, which are both code-first GraphQL libraries. And today I want to show you how you can get similar functionalities with SDL-first. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Cool. Do we want to start by going through the release notes? Should we do that? We can walk through them.
Let's go.
Okay. Do you want me to share screen for that, or?
There you are already.
Oh, there we go. You got it?
Yes.
Awesome. So 2.23, 2 really cool things that I pulled out of this release that we'll talk about and show some demos for. First is JSON filtering is in preview now. This is something that I haven't really used a whole lot in relational databases. I've had a lot of experience with NoSQL, so Mongo in particular, where of course you can store objects and arrays of objects and stuff in an unstructured fashion, and then you can query for it and stuff like that. But you can do similar things. You can get similar behavior in a relational database with fields that are of JSON-B type. So here in your model, for example, you can set a field to type JSON. That's what you would do in your Prisma schema to say that it's a JSON field. And what's really cool now in Prisma is that you can start to filter these things, and you can start to like query for various fields to be of a certain value, above a certain value, below it, right? You've got all these operators that you can use to query for JSON in your relational database now. It works right now with Postgres and MySQL. Those are the 2 that we support. The way that it looks is like this. You would plug into a path. So in this example, you're doing a where query, and you're looking for the meta field. Meta is up here, right? This field here is called meta. And request ID is the path that you might be looking for. So let's take a look. Request ID, we've got it here. What's interesting and what's useful about JSON in your in any case here is that you don't need to have certain fields, right? Like let's say you have, in this example, it's logging info, where you might get certain fields existing in some circumstances, but not in others. So if you have unstructured data like this that isn't always consistent, it doesn't always have those specific fields, it's a good use case for a JSON field. So in this case, we'd be looking for a path of request ID. So that's going to go and look for anywhere where the request ID exists. And then we're looking for where it equals 10. So there we go. Request ID equals 10. This would pull out these fields right there. You can, order them. You can combine this like where query with different operators. I'm going to show that in my demo. But all in all, it is very cool. You can start to filter and sort and everything on your JSON fields now. One thing to say about this is that the syntax for it is a bit different between Postgres and MySQL. Again, those are the two that we support right now. MySQL, so in Postgres, for example, if you look up here, right, you're doing a path of request ID. It's just a string for that field name. But in MySQL, it actually looks like this, $.requestID. So a little bit different. And the deal here, excuse me, the deal here is that we just pass through whatever you put into the path key here into this array. We're going to pass that through to the database query to actually do your filtering. So really cool feature. It's in preview now. You've got to opt into it in your Prisma, your client here. Preview features, filter JSON in that array will get you that feature. So before I go on, Niko, any thoughts about this feature yourself? This is what I'm excited for now that I've started playing with it.
Yeah, it's super cool that we start leveraging also the unstructured data that people have in their database and allow people to start querying it in a more convenient manner. So I'm really excited about this, and I think it was actually also one of our most highly requested features. So I think hopefully we made a lot of people happy by putting it into preview in this release.
Awesome. Yes, I'm excited for that one. There's an improvement to Prisma DB seed. That's the next thing we'll talk about. And the improvement is that you can now get your seed, your seeder to run if you export a function named seed or have a default, an export default function in a file called seed.js or seed.ts or whatever. So previously the behavior is that you would have to set up all the logic and like the execution and everything in these files. And then when you would call npx prisma db seed, it would just execute that file. Now it's going to actually go and run the function that you export. So a little bit of an improvement there that might be beneficial for you depending on how you have your seeding set up. And I will show this in my demo that I'll give just after this as well. Aside from that, there's some breaking changes. So one big thing to talk about is this thing we're doing now where we're prefixing various operators with underscore. So like count is one here. It used to be count just like this, but now you got to do underscore count. And here is the little breakdown. So it works for any of these max, min, average, sum. Just stick an underscore in front of it if you're at version 2.23 or later. And there's something to note as well about that on that topic is that if you are here and you're doing like average, for example, you're going to want to call underscore average now. So yeah, I think the deal here is like, since we're changing things here with like count and max and min and everything, we're just going to change it wherever it makes sense. But I believe that in the aggregate queries, it's still going to work for the time being, if I read that correctly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So not a breaking change, but you should take the opportunity if you can to upgrade nonetheless. So yeah, you'll notice things like this. Like we've done things like this before with prefixing various methods with $, for example, right? Like disconnect, for example, is now prefixed by $, and that has come to be how you have to do it now. Eventually, like this is the way to do it, but for the time being, at least for aggregations, you can stick with this if need be. A bunch of other fixes and improvements you can have a read through at the 2.23 release. And before I wrap that up and show my demo, Niko, I invite any of your comments on this.
Yeah, I think that was a great overview that you gave there, Ryan. And I don't have much to add. No, really, I think you can jump into the demo.
Sweet. Okay, sounds good. So let's hop over and take a look at what I've got. So, I was thinking about like usage for JSON fields, and it's really interesting because like there's all these cases where I think you'd have unstructured data that either I guess you don't control or you don't want to control, or there's some limitation there. And so what I mean by that is like, let's say you've got some kind of configuration options for your application that are based on like objects, and those objects are unstructured. You might not know what the user might input. And I'm thinking, when I think of user here, I'm thinking more of like a developer, for example. And the case that comes to mind for this is, I think back to Auth0, where you can have a user account and then you can have some like some metadata about that user, which can just be stored for the user, and that can be used to drive decisions on how the user is authorized. It can be used to give your application some information about the user that you might want to configure. And that's all very like unstructured. Like you don't know what users are going to want to put in there. I should say, you don't know what application developers are going to want to put into that field. So it's unstructured, and that's a perfect use case for JSON. So in that vein, I've made this model here with a user where we have some things that we always want to be there. Like their name and email, but app metadata might be something that the developer can configure for that user. And so there's other cases where you might want to use JSON as well. Like one thing I was thinking about is, let's say you want to store results from requests to third-party services. You could store those results, which often come back as JSON objects, like showing like the request ID maybe, or like the state of the request and whether it was successful or not, or things like that. You can store that information as JSON because you don't really know the full structure of it, and you might not want to create a whole database schema to describe every possibility of the structure that might come back from a third-party service, something like that. So in any case, I've got this little example of user, and it's got a JSON field for app metadata. And then over here, I've created a seed.ts file. I've got 3 users. And what you'll notice is app metadata is different between them. So this is what it looks like for the first one, for John Doe, just 3 fields. And then for Jane Doe, it's a little different. Some things are similar, but then we've got this like sub account object, which is like kind of a nested object. And then, like not every field is there for every user. So differences between their app metadata. And that is just fine for a JSON field. So what we'll do is run this seed to get this into the database. And this is showing an example of that improvement to database seeding, where now we can export a default function, and this will be picked up by the seeder to actually run that seeding task, where essentially we're just looping over that data and creating a user out of it. So we can do npx prisma db seed, and we'll pass preview feature. And what do we get here? Your database has been seeded. Awesome. So let's take a look now over here. I'll refresh this. There's our users. There's our app metadata. I don't know, Niko, do you know if there's a better way to kind of view this in Prisma Studio, or is it kind of you just got to scroll?
Yeah, I think it's just this kind of very kind of basic view for now, but I could imagine that we also want to improve this kind of going forward. But I'm not aware of any better way to render JSON data here.
Cool. In any case, you can pull it out by logging it if you need to see the full structure and whatnot if you don't want it just in one line. But that takes care of our seeding. Seeding is done. Let's close that up and take a look over here at server.ts. What we can do is npx, or rather npm run dev. I've got a dev script here using ts node dev. And when I run that, I get all 3 users. So that is cool. I'm just doing a simple find many. And now comes the part where we plug in to to our where clause, and then we want to search for app metadata, and then we want to filter based on that unstructured JSON that we've got. So to do that, we pass, we pass path, and that's an array. And let's see, let me think about something I just want to search for to maybe get myself 1 or 2 users. So my first 2 users have role of admin. Let's try with that for now. So we'll say the path is role. It should equals admin. I believe I did admin, yeah, lowercase, perfect. So I've got my 2 users, there they are. So that's great to start with already. But what we can do that's really cool is, let's take a look again at our user data. We've got this sub account like nested object, and we can work with that here if we are back over in server TS. What we do is we pass a second string here for what we want to use for our nested objects. So what it would look like is sub accounts, and then if we want to, let me remind myself what I've got. So I've got sub account, and let's say I want to look for accounts. Should I do that one? Yeah, let's do this one, accounts. So accounts, I can do equals 5. That should give me just the 1 user. It doesn't. Let me see what the issue is. Oh, sorry, accounts is at that top level. So sub accounts, exactly. Logins. Let's work with logins. So logins. Oops. And we'll say greater than 50, maybe. Yes. So we've got just the single user, because over in our user data, this user's got a login count of 57, this one 33. So perfect. We have filtered appropriately there. So all that to say is that you can do you can start to nest your filtering like this. Yeah. So one last thing I'll show is that if you wanted to combine these, it's totally possible to do with the existing combinators, maybe you'd call them. I'm not sure how the best way to refer to them. But you can do something like this, where you pull app metadata into this array, and this is looking for that, so we still get that. Let's start to combine it now. If we copy this, on app metadata, path, subaccount, logins, and then let's pull out something else. We've got role user. Let's say, well, let's do this first. Let's get ourselves, let's comment this out, and let's get ourselves both users. That should work, right? Both users are there. Now we want to have greater than 1 with a specific name for their subaccount account name. Subaccount account name. It should equals. Just have to copy this string over here. Test subaccount 2. Let's go with that. Test subaccount 2 comes in here, and now if all goes well, I should just have that 1 user, and sure enough, I do. So you can combine these filter operations, do lots of cool stuff with them, and everything else that you would expect with Prisma queries as well, right? You select a certain field, right? First name, true. Last name, true, if you just want the name of the user. So really cool options. Lots to play with there, and yeah, have a play with it. Let us know what you think if you run into any issues. Again, it is a preview feature right now, so in your schema.prisma, you'll need to opt into it like this: preview features equals filter JSON. And yeah, that's it.
Very cool. Yeah, like I don't know about you, Ryan, but like I feel a little bit spoiled with like Prisma Client and all the type safety that it provides, that when I see a string-based API like this, it always makes me feel a little bit uneasy. I get no type safety inside of the path. Absolutely. I don't get any auto-completion. I can make a typo. And of course, that's just like the nature of this feature, because the data inside of the database is unstructured. Yep. And like that's how it works. And I'm kind of really like I have to fall back on making sure that I'm typing correctly and I don't have a compiler to help me. Right. But that's just because like otherwise we are so spoiled that everything else with Prisma Client is always so type safe. So I think that's acceptable for this particular feature. And maybe, who knows, I think there are some feature requests that are also talking a little bit about being able to still define a structure even for the JSON fields. That probably won't happen in form of another model, but who knows what kind of concept or primitive we might be coming up with in the Prisma schema to actually model the JSON data inside a relational database also in a more type-safe way. Yeah, we'll see. But for now, we really don't get any type safety here for sure.
Yeah, what you'll notice, like if you try to start doing something like a look ahead here for what's available, you'll get a bunch of stuff that is associated. Some stuff like sub account and name and whatever, but this really isn't like a type safe. There's no type safety here. This is just like string based, Wild West sort of thing. But that's the nature of the game. If you're dealing with unstructured databases like document databases, this is a document flavor kind of thing right within Postgres. It's for reasons like this and reasons like you mentioned, Niko, that I've largely moved away from Mongo, let's say, and NoSQL in general. I need that type safety. I need that database. I need some training wheels back on is essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool. Thank you for the demo, Ryan. I think that was super insightful and gave a great overview of the new JSON filtering feature that we have available in Prisma Client. All right, let's move on and bring on Mahmoud to the stream and have him chat a little bit about what he has been up to. So let me remove this. Oh, sorry. Oh.
I'm fighting you on it. Sorry.
Classic. All right, I think now we are properly arranged. Hey, Mahmoud.
Hey, you guys can hear me, see me. Everything's working, right?
Perfectly. How are you doing today, Mahmoud?
I'm doing good. Everything is nice. Like if we're talking about the weather, so like I live in Egypt and it's very hot, like too hot. But I can't complain. Like I prefer heat more than like the cold.
So how warm is it actually for you right now? Is it like in the 30s?
I don't know. Oh no, but probably 40s sometimes too. So it's like really hot.
Okay,
yeah, so
that is very hot indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Mahmoud, we brought you on today to talk a little bit about your experience working at Prisma here and the stuff that you have already been working on in the past 6 months. So why don't you start a little bit and to like preface this very quickly, you were on a stream already, the one that we did shortly before Christmas, where you kind of introduce yourself and your background. So if people are curious about that, they can go back to the previous stream. I think it was the holiday special episode, so it should be fairly easy to find that one on YouTube, and because we have the timestamps in the video descriptions, it should also be easy to quickly jump to that specific part. So we'll spare the thorough introduction of yourself today, and I think we can jump right into kind of the work that you've been doing here at Prisma for the past 6 months. So yeah, maybe talk a little bit about what are the things that you have been working on here during your time at Prisma already?
Okay, so first of all, it doesn't feel like 6 months. For some reason, it feels like I've been here longer. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I feel like I've done a lot during like these past 6 months. So like what? I published an article on dev.to, an article on the Prisma blog. I went on a live stream with Colby Fayok where kind of like explained Prisma with Next.js. Also did a video for the launch because Prisma is now production ready. And also I did a video for the data platform. It is an exciting product that we're currently working on. And yeah, and currently right now I'm working on Next.js with GraphQL demo. It's like this giant demo. It took me a while to build. It has so many features. So it has a GraphQL API. It has things like pagination, image upload, authentication, authorization. So it's really big. And I'm currently, I'm in the process of writing it. I'm learning a lot. And yeah, so like so many things happened. I've been having a lot of fun. To me, honestly, it doesn't feel like work till this day. It's kind of like I'm just creating content. So yeah.
That's really great to hear, and I'm really looking forward to having the content that you're currently working on for that full stack demo, like having that like published fairly soon. And I think the entire application that you built there will also serve as a really good reference for people that just want to know kind of what a real world application looks like with Prisma, right? Because that's often the thing, that we have a lot of examples in the Prisma examples repository, but there we kind of intentionally try to have these examples as minimal as possible and do not add much configuration. We don't add any testing to these, so that people really can take them. They kind of see just the fundamental parts of how Prisma works with a certain library, and then we just assume that people will be ready and able to add their own flavors to it with their own config preferences, with their own workflows. But really, I think a lot of people are looking for this starter kit, for this full stack reference that already has a bunch of that stuff configured. And I think in that sense, your the app that you're working on and the tutorials that you'll publish for it will really scratch that particular itch. So super excited about that.
Yeah, like I think also one thing, it's kind of like there are a lot of moving parts, and each tool can be substituted. So for example, I'm using Tailwind CSS for styling, but you can choose whatever styling library you want. Maybe I'm using something for form validation. So it's kind of like just to show like kind of, okay, here are the different components that I would use. And of course, if someone wants to substitute it, they can.
Very cool. That's super nice. If you look back at the past 6 months and kind of would have to pick maybe 1, 2, 3 kind of personal highlights that really like where like maybe you contributed, or maybe even on a company level, like what would you say these highlights were?
I would have to say it's the launch. Like the launch was huge. It was very successful. There was like a ton of contribution. Like seeing how we kind of like all work together. It was fascinating, because this is kind of like the first experience for me working as a developer advocate. So kind of seeing like how we coordinate everything, the different pieces of content that we published. Yeah, it was. I would say this is the biggest highlight, and like also the video I made, and kind of like how we reviewed it and people actually liked it as well. So that was really nice. But yeah, I'd say this is like the biggest highlight, because it was just so big, it was so successful, and like I'm super proud of like what we've accomplished.
Cool. Yeah. Like I have a very similar feeling. I have to say that even though I've been with the company now for 4.5 years, that launch definitely also makes it into my top 3 like personal highlights that I've experienced with the company over that entire period. So I can certainly subscribe to that.
Yeah, it felt like it was like the finish line, and like this was like the final push. All Prisma components are like now production ready, and we can say, okay, they're not in preview, you can use them. So yeah, it felt like a big win.
Yeah. And at the same time, like as you're saying that it's kind of like the finish line at the first, like at the same time, it's also kind of the first step that we are actually making, because we now finally kind of have the foundation for what we actually envision Prisma to be in the future, right? Which is a lot more than just another open source ORM. Of course, that's a big part of it. That's the core, but we want to build an entire platform around that makes it easier for application developers to work with their databases and potentially other data sources. So I think we have big plans ahead, and that was just the first step. And yeah, like I keep telling also like friends of mine when like I talk to them about my work, and I'm saying that it's been 4.5 years that I've been with this company, but only now we're actually ready and have this product ready that we've been like working on for so long. It's sometimes a little bit weird and feels a bit like almost surreal, but yeah, it's funny, and I'm super excited about the months ahead there.
Yeah.
All right. I think that you and Ryan, you two, you have something in common, that you both really care about developer education and also creating video tutorials. So I thought that we could maybe speak a little bit about this, and maybe like how you maybe got into that at first, Mahmoud, and also the kind of tricks and workflows just in general that you're using. And maybe like Ryan like could also share a little bit of his like personal story and thoughts in that regard.
Ryan, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I can give like a quick background for me. I mean, I think the first set of video tutorials that I did, it's probably back to like 2015, if I remember correctly. And that's like shortly after I'd been getting into writing technical articles, and I was just looking for a natural evolution to that. And, you know, video tutorials seems interesting. And I remember it was like way harder to actually do well than I thought it would be. It's this kind of thing that looks easy if you watch a tutorial. You know, I think anybody can learn how to do it, but it's just for me it was so much harder to actually make a well-produced video than I initially thought. I just remember it taking so long to do, and I'm at a point now where it's a lot faster, but still takes a long time. Editing especially is time consuming, at least the way that I produce mine. But yeah, I got into it because I wanted to sort of experiment, and you know, it was good. I made some courses and put them up for sale and things like that, and that went well. So looking to do more in the future, and it's fun. You know, it's stressful at times, but I generally like making the videos. But I do start to pull my hair out sometimes when I'm on my 20th take and I just haven't gotten it quite right, and I can't seem to nail what I was going to say or whatever. So it can be frustrating. What about you, Mahmoud?
Yeah, so like I'd say people don't know what happens behind the scenes. They just see the final product. So they don't see how many kind of like iterations we go through to actually publish something. So whether it doesn't matter what type of content. So if it's written content, like for example, Niko and I, we kind of go through a lot of back and forth. Is this explained correctly? Does this flow well? And yeah, like same thing with videos. Is this really good? Does it sound good? Does it look good? So yeah, I would say my process, it all starts with writing first. I like to first write, makes kind of like my thoughts organized. And then then I kind of like visualize, okay, what do I want to happen? And then start recording. And of course, the recording process is not super easy. Sometimes like there's the camera and like you're talking to it and like you forget what you want to say. Yeah, like it's challenging, but to me it's fun. I really enjoy it, and I think it's super valuable because without this educational content, I would not have been able to like code. Actually, like I would not know like without these resources. Yeah, like that they're super helpful. So I'm kind of like glad that, and it's kind of like me giving back to the community through this role. So yeah.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm actually super happy that we hired the two of you, because before you were on board here, it was mostly me who created our videos. And in the past, like I struggled a lot with this, and I think I'm like very much on like an amateur level compared to the two of you. So since we hired the two of you, I think our bar of like video content has risen, and that's a really good thing that I'm very happy about.
Awesome.
All right, Mahmoud, any final words, or should we let you go for this stream today?
Any final words? Not really. Like I'm excited about Prisma Day. That is very soon. And yeah, like this is going to be a big event. It's going to be super friendly, super fun. Like a lot of community members will have the ability to present, share their projects. So yeah, I'm super excited for that. I'm planning also on contributing to that as well. Kind of helping and promoting it. But yeah, that's kind of like the final thoughts.
Very, very cool, Mahmoud. Thank you for that, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
All right.
See you, Mahmoud.
Bye.
Cheers. All right, let's rearrange things here. There we go. All right, that was nice talking to a couple of colleagues from time to time on the stream and listening to what they are up to. In fact, for the next stream, I've also already talked to a few people on the Prisma team to have them on the show in 2 weeks. I don't want to promise too much yet, but I have at least 2 people who are already confirmed. So stay tuned to get to know more Prismates and the work that they are doing. And for today's stream, the last big topic I think that we want to cover is the SDL-first CRUD generator that I mentioned in the beginning. And for that, I am going to share my screen now. Just give me a second. Yeah, there's everything prepared. Now I just have to click the share screen button. This one, share. All right. What do we see here? So first of all, what do I actually want to show?
What put it into the stream though?
Oh, thank you for calling this out early before I embarrass myself.
No problem.
All right, what do we see here? This is the documentation page of a website that is called Pal.js. Pal.js stands for I am your friend. It's a very friendly library that helps you to work with Prisma, with GraphQL, and with React. And it's written by one of our community members, Ahmed, who I think I've seen in the YouTube comments already. So huge shout out to Ahmed for all of his work. And it's actually interesting because Pal.js solves a lot of very, very important problems for GraphQL developers that are using Prisma. And in my opinion, it gets way too little attention. So today is a quick attempt to change that by showcasing one workflow that it can do live here on the stream. But I just quickly want to give an overview of the different tools that it includes. So Prisma Select is an extension to tackle down N+1 issues with better query construction using the Prisma query engine. Actually, we'll see an example of what this is and how it works exactly. But like on a high level, you can imagine it if you think about implementing your GraphQL resolvers. In order to resolve relations, you typically have to implement these type resolvers. And with Prisma Select, you actually don't have to do that because you can just take the GraphQL info object already on the root resolver level and pass that info object into the middleware that's provided by Prisma Select, and that's going to then resolve the query for you under the hood in a more efficient way even than if you were using the type resolver approach. So that's very, very nice. Then there is an extension that is just able to do cascading deletes together with Prisma, which is a feature that we do want to support with Prisma eventually, but right now it's not natively supported. But like as we were speaking about it, I believe that this is pretty high on our priority list and is one of the next features that is going to be implemented. In fact, let me very quickly just validate that and see if this is already on the roadmap. It's been a while since I've checked out the roadmap, but here we go. Work in progress. The work in progress column has the support for specifying cascade deletes in the Prisma schema. And I believe there recently was a GitHub issue that outlined the specification for that explains how it's going to look like. Let's see, has it been referenced here? Or if I can just do this, cascading deletes, no. Okay, but it's somewhere on GitHub, the specification for what this feature is actually going to look like. It's actually not very surprising in a way, I guess. It's really just like another parameter that you pass, I think, into the @relation attribute that you use to denote relations in the Prisma schema. So it should be fairly straightforward to use that when it gets out. And then the generator class, that's what I want to show today. So this is what's auto-generating CRUD operations for SDL-first. That's what I'm showing today. GraphQL modules and Nexus. Today, we'll just look at the SDL-first version. And then there even are React frontend components that you can also use in order to display the data. So kind of like a Prisma Studio, but customizable and for your own kind of front end and potentially an admin UI, like whatever your use case for that might be, but also super interesting. And I recommend you to go check out this site here and just explore the features that Ahmed implemented. All right, so that's a high-level overview of what Pal.js actually is and what it does. And now I want to come to my demo. So here I have a Prisma project, very standard with a data model that we are very familiar with, users and posts. There is already a database that has been seeded with some sample data. So I'll just quickly show that inside of Prisma Studio. We have 3 user records and 4 post records that all are related to a specific user. And what I want to show you now is how you can use Pal.js's SDL-first CRUD generation to build a GraphQL CRUD API. So
Niko, can you bump your code editor size a bit? A bit tricky to see.
Is
awesome.
that better?
Yep, that's great. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. All right. For now, I just quickly want to show what we have in this project. So next to the Prisma schema that I already showed and the SQLite database, that's also part of it. We have the API layer. Where we have a very simple, just hello world GraphQL schema for now, where we create the GraphQL schema instance right here. We export that, and then we use Apollo server. We feed in the schema, and we can execute it, and that's already running here. And of course, at the moment, we only have this one query. It's not very interesting. It's also not using the database that we already have configured in the project. So what I want to show you is with a couple of commands and a few lines of code, how you can get a full GraphQL CRUD API for these Prisma models, really. Quick peek at the dependencies. So I'm using the Pal.js plugins right here. The example is also using GraphQL tools merge. And then otherwise, it's pretty much just the standard Prisma, GraphQL, and TypeScript dependencies that you'd find in most other projects as well. All right, so let's start working on the actual CRUD API. And usually I have to say I'm preparing live demos very, very thoroughly, and I do at least 2 or 3 dry runs through the entire demo. I didn't have the time to do that today, so I only did it once, and it was still in my exploration phase. So hopefully things are going to work out. And if not, I have a backup prepared where I can just show everything. But I'll just also use all the documentation that Ahmed has written up for this approach here. So the way how to start this is that like what I want to do is I want to auto-generate the CRUD system for my schema.prisma file. And for each model, there will be a folder with 2 files. That's the type defs and the resolvers. And Ahmed, he provided an example of a potential schema and the generated output right here. And that is, again, the user and post models. And if you then run generate, and if the right generator is configured, then this is what's going to be generated. So you get the actual SDL inside a typedefs file, and then just a resolver implementation for all of these inside a resolver map in a different file. So if I now run Pal generate, actually it won't work already. It will not work because Pal needs to know what it should be generating when I run the generate command. So if I click on the documentation here, I can find some information on what exactly I can generate. And the important part about this is actually down here, where I can tell the Pal generator what exactly it should generate. And I have these 4 options here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the pal.json config file that I can then pass to the generate command. And inside it, I'm going to use this structure that's defined via this config interface here to tell Pal.js what it should be generating. And in this case, this is backend, and then I have to specify a generator field. And the value for this generator is SDL. Right, that is my config already. And when I now run Pal generate, I believe it's picking it up automatically. Yes, so it now first looked at this file. It saw, aha, Niko wants to generate the CRUD resolvers in an SDL-first manner. It then read my Prisma data model. It saw that I had 2 models, sorry, and it created this new folder right here that's called GraphQL. And inside that, I see exactly as described here in the documentation that I had read before, that per model, we will have a folder that contains 2 files. So that's exactly what is happening here. So the tool behaves exactly as expected. And if we take the resolvers of the user as an example, and the type defs, we also see that this is pretty much similar to what we saw in the documentation. The GraphQL user type is defined, and then the query type is defined as well, with all the operations where the arguments for the operations are based on the arguments that are also passed to Prisma client underneath. And then for the actual implementation, well, there is a resolver map that just does exactly this. It uses Prisma client to then resolve the operations that have been defined via the type defs. I also get this typings file with all these types defined. If I need to access those inside my application somewhere. But this is really neat because this already now is a lot of boilerplate code that if I really just need CRUD operations for my Prisma models in GraphQL, I would have to type all of that myself. And this tool is just generating all of that for me. So saving me a whole lot of work, a whole lot of typing work. And it's fully customizable as well, right? So like what I really like about this is that the generated code is really readable. It's not cryptic at all. It's really something that I would feel comfortable with, just like modifying myself and potentially even extending myself, because I very much understand what is going on here. And well, actually, I think that's really nice, and that is something that not all code generation tools can pride themselves with. I think a lot of times when you work with code generation, the code that is actually coming out is very often unreadable and feels very cryptic to me. But this one is very readable, so that's super nice. Okay. So let's go back to our schema file. And instead of using these two type defs and resolvers with our Hello World implementation, I'll now just import the ones that just have been generated. The rest of the code just remains unchanged. And if I go to the server, I also don't have to change anything for now. And I can run the server again. And let's just check out the schema. And we already see that we now have a lot more in our schema. And also in the documentation, it actually shows all the operations that I have now available. So for example, if I wanted to query all the users, I can use the find many user query and ask for the ID, name, and email of the user. Of the users, and I get indeed the same users that I have already stored in my database. So that's really neat. What happens if I want to start querying relations? So now I want to say, okay, each user has posts, so I also want to print the posts of that with ID, title, and published fields. And if I send this query, then we suddenly get an error back. And why is that? The reason for that is what I mentioned in the beginning when I was talking about the Prisma select tool that's also part of Pal.js. And it comes back to the question of how you're resolving relations inside your GraphQL server. And the way, for example, how you resolve like how you would typically resolve relations would be using type resolvers. So inside of a resolver file, you would not only implement resolvers for the query type and for the mutation type, but if you want to resolve the author relation on post, then you actually would have to do this here. And you're passing in the parent, and then you can implement a call to Prisma client here. Actually, like would be it would look something like this. I don't think I have Prisma client. Yeah, it would be in the context. I guess I can do this. Works actually would look something like this. And context.prisma.post.find unique, where ID parent.id and then .author. And that's how I would resolve the author relation on posts in the traditional way. But that's not how Ahmed is doing it here with or is like recommending it here in his tool chain. Instead, he recommends to use the select part of his library that is using the information that's transported in the GraphQL info object in the resolver in order to resolve the relations for his queries. And what I'll do for this to demonstrate, I am simply going to copy paste what Ahmed has provided here. So first, I'm using this Prisma. I'm importing the Prisma select function from the plugins. This is also using GraphQL middleware, which is another helpful library. And this is just the type of the info object. And at this point, what I'll do is really just copy and paste this part. So defining the middleware right here. And then let's call this final schema and make sure that the final schema that has the middleware where this additional resolution of relations happens is there. Restarting the server. And hopefully, if I now resend the same query, then we actually see the data coming back, including the related posts per user.
Nice.
All right. Yeah. That was it for my demo here. How did you like it, Ryan? Have you seen Pal.js before? Have you worked with it?
Not worked with it in any kind of official capacity, but I've seen it before, and definitely think it's beneficial for sure. Like, you save a lot of time if you can have the computer write the code for you instead of you writing it. So the point that you made about it generating very readable code that you can augment and change and whatnot, that's really important, because it's most likely the case that if you are using a generator, you're going to need to step in to customize it at some point. Either you want to remove certain fields from your schema that it has generated for you, or you want to add some, or just get really custom. You're going to need to step in at some point. So it's very nice to see that it generates really customizable and extensible code. That's really cool.
Yeah. And one thing that's actually a little bit kind of funny and maybe a bit kind of like a little bit paradox is that these CRUD, GraphQL CRUD generators for Prisma, they basically now exist in a kind of production-ready capacity for SDL-first and for type GraphQL. So about the type GraphQL generator, we talked in a previous episode, and there's also some content around this. Our working student Alex, he wrote a tutorial about that we published on Dev2. We also have an example of type GraphQL CRUD in our Prisma examples repo. But the GraphQL schema library that we are also maintaining over here at Prisma, Nexus, that currently doesn't really have a solution for that we're recommending. There is the t.crud function that people can use in the current Nexus plugin Prisma, which we are deprecating though and rewriting at the moment. So there will be another version of this at some point in the future. But as of today, the approach is to get the GraphQL CRUD resolvers. They only really work with type GraphQL and SDL-first. But speaking of the new Nexus Prisma plugin, actually, and I can tease that now already, is on the next stream in 2 weeks, we will have Jason Kurt on the show to talk about the rewrite of the Nexus Prisma plugin and hopefully showcasing a little bit of its functionality already. So be prepared for that. And I think with that, we can slowly start wrapping up by plugging a couple of upcoming events. So we have Prisma Day coming up. Mahmoud already talked about this when he was on the stream. So it's on June 29th and June 30th. So a bit more than a month. On June 29th, we'll have a bunch of workshops, and the day after, we'll have talks. For the talks on June 30th, there is a call for papers that is open up until Sunday. So if you have a topic that you would like to talk about at Prisma Day, be sure to go to prisma.io/day, hit the call for papers button here, and tell us what you would like to speak about. And otherwise, we just really hope to see you as an attendee at the conference, ideally, of course, on both days. Then we also have a Prisma Meetup coming up, edition number 6. That's going to happen on June 2nd. So I guess that's in, is it next week? 2 weeks, I guess. So also looking forward to that. That's going to be hosted by our other working student in DevRel, Alex. And we'll have 3 talks, one about securing Next.js and Prisma apps with Auth 0, one about architecture of distributed SQL cloud databases, and then Martina, who we also already had on the What's New in Prisma live stream, and our colleague Nilu. They will talk about the process of writing and building the Prisma documentation. So I hope that a lot of you are going to tune in for that meetup. And finally, I also want to shine some spotlight on another project of our working student, Alex. Alex joined us half a year ago together with Mahmoud. And when he joined, he had this idea of initiating his own meetup. And I'm really, really happy to see that half a year later, it's actually happening. The Connect Dev Africa meetup is going to happen on May 27th. So that's next week already. I'm certainly going to attend this one, and I'm really looking forward to that. So everyone here is invited to join us there as well. All right. I think that was it for the stream today.
Yep. Awesome. Great demo. Really cool stuff on the horizon. I'm excited.
Yeah. And I will see you here back in 2 weeks, Ryan.
Sounds
Enjoy
good.
the rest of your day.
Bye-bye, everyone.